I've been campaigning for the last 10 years for a serial perpetrator register, and these serial perps, West Midlands police say, oh, we log when they're serial perpetrators. Well, if you log it, what are you doing with that information? It's no good just logging it and not doing anything with it. That's like a book on a shelf. You need to join the docs and act on the information that you've got. So in my case, had there have been so you've got something called the Violent and Sex Offenders Register. It's called VISOR, VISOR, and that does not collect information around domestic abusers and stalkers, which it should, and this is what our campaign's been about the last 10 years. And it's going through the Victim and Prisoners Bill at the moment. We're trying to get an amendment through. What that would do would then put a statutory obligation on the police to then, record that information that there's a serial perpetrator and then act accordingly. Because actually what they're doing now is they are taking each offence in isolation. And if you look at each individual stalking offence in isolation, it's unremarkable. They don't seem like anything. But if you join the dots and start looking at the pattern and the escalation and the relentless fixation, obsession, you put all of that together, it builds a completely different picture. So I think that they are policing based on just evidence of a crime. The whole way that they deal with the policing of stalkers at the moment, like I say, it's the incidents in isolation, but then there's also a culture piece that sits behind that. So if you imagine when they took that call from me and it was about Jason Smith, now if they'd have had that information, data, if they had that data, then they would be able to make an informed decision. So what they're not doing is they're running around responding to 999 calls without the information that they need to do their jobs properly. It always feels like we're always blaming the police. It's their fault. They're not doing their job. But unless we give them the tools to be able to do their job properly, then how are they meant to do that? So, that comes down to a resourcing and a law change, which is why we need the serial register. It needs to be enshrined in law, and it needs to be a statutory obligation on police to do something, which will then force the hand of culture to change. Because then it would be, well, let's look this person up. Have they got a history? Yes, they have. Right, that victim is no longer a standard risk, they're a high risk. They are then, when they're dispatching police officers, they're dispatching them at the level of risk that they are meant to be at, as opposed to, like in my case, as a standard risk. Now, if they'd have come out to me and said, and I would have had the right to know under Clare's law, if they'd have come out to me and said, this guy's dangerous, he's done it before, this is his history, I could have then made an informed decision that actually, well, he needs an order put against him and he needs to stay away from me properly. I wouldn't have made the decision to go and meet him, and I certainly wouldn't have brought him back to my house on my own. So, there's a case in point.
So what would be the main differences between Clare's law, the Clare's Law rights and the serial perpetrators register? Like,
so
what
the Clare's Law register, all that does is allows a family member or you, if you started dating someone, to go and find out if they've got a history of domestic abuse and stalking. That relies on the victim to go and actually do that. Now, I would not have done that because I didn't know I was a victim. I didn't see myself as a victim. So again, that's something that puts the onus on the victim to change the perpetrator's behaviour, and that's not fair. The serial perpetrator register will actually put the onus on the police and the perpetrator to change, because the police will then be able to track and monitor those perpetrators, as opposed to putting the onus on the victim to make a report and say, can I have some information, please? And it might be worth having a look at this stat as well. How many of those Clare's laws actually get refused because they don't have to give that information out?